Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunda Vihari Jaya Kunda Vihari So next we'll just recite the Mangala Charan. These are prayers for invoking auspiciousness before we begin our class today. You can all follow along with me at the same time. Om Jnanamitimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Radhi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Bhakta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Paravebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So welcome everybody again. Today's class will be called The 5 Attitudes That Invite Bhakti into Our Lives. And I'll start by saying right away that this is not a class of my own making. It's a class that my spiritual master, His Grace Vaisheshika Maharaj, he gave this class a few years ago, and I really felt inspired by it. So I thought today I'll just simply try to repeat what I heard from him in hope that all of us will benefit from it. So anything good you hear is his credit, and any mistakes will be my inability to reproduce that. I'd also like to take a moment to express our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of this movement, and it's only because of him and his hard work that we're all sitting here today. Thank you. So yeah, today's class is called the 5 Attitudes, right? So I think we should start off by defining what is an attitude. So we'll just get to that basic thing. Can anybody read this for me? Any volunteer?
Attitude, a settled way of thinking or feeling about
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. So essentially, this is what Oxford says is the definition of attitude. It means that the way we feel about something is actually going to end up how we act towards that something. So the first question I'm going to ask all of you to think about today and reflect is, what is our own attitude towards bhakti in our lives? Is it good? Is it bad? Pessimistic, optimistic? Because we know from the definition that the way you feel will determine the way you act, right? So the attitudes that invite bhakti, there's we can learn about it actually from our scriptures, right? And the most famous one that we know is the Srimad Bhagavatam. I just want to say a word about the scriptures. It's we might just think these are ordinary books, but our scriptures are actually the most valuable asset we have in our movement. Everything else comes and goes with time, but our books, they must stay eternal and they give us the truth from ages ago. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is known as the mature fruit of all these Vedic literatures, right? It's the cream of the crop. And it's distilled information so we can quickly learn what we need to. It's just in 18 volumes at 12 cantos, and we know everything we need to about everything. So it makes sense that we should go there and consult about how to improve on our spirituality, right? So one observation I had in my life as I grew up in this movement is that we'll read these books, we'll learn about these personalities, but there's a disconnect. Most people will often say, "Oh, Prabhu, how can I be like those personalities in the Bhagavatam? I'm so fallen, you see. They're pure devotees. I can never be like them." So it feels like, people think is out of reach examples in the Bhagavatam. And today I'm going to challenge that assumption. Today I'm going to posit that by examining different personalities in the Srimad Bhagavatam and looking at their attitudes or their moods in their life, we can learn so much. In fact, we can find it in our own lives. And then we can see how they use that mood to then overcome difficulty and get closer to Krishna. And in fact, reach Krishna, maybe in that very lifetime. And then if we truly have faith in this connection, then we will feel much more inspired because we can think, okay, I can read these books. So the first person we're going to discuss today, her name is Devahuti. And many of you will know about her, of course. And I'll give a brief explanation of who she is in case you may not know. Um, and I want to say that we can summarize her attitude in her life by the words, "I'm sick and tired." So first, I'll say this. Does anybody want to give a brief explanation of who Devahuti is in the scriptures? Yeah, volunteer. Yes, the daughter of Swayambhu Manu, wife of Kardama. That's a great introduction to Devahuti. Basically, Kardama Muni was a great sage, and Devahuti was married to him. And in those times, sages would meditate for hundreds or thousands of years and do their various services and tapasyas. And during that time, Devahuti, as a wife, she would be very loyal and offer a lot of help so he could do his services easily. And after a prolonged period of time, Kardama Muni felt very grateful that Devahuti was so kind and helpful to him in his service to the Lord, that then he offered some material benedictions to her as a form of gratitude. As you can see in the picture on the left hand side, out of his gratitude and using his mystical powers, he literally created a palace that floated in the air for her. And then they toured the world together, and he gave her all sorts of material facilities. Now you would think this is a pretty good deal, right? And it was for some time. But eventually, as time passed, Kardama Muni left home to go and get even deeper in his services, his meditation, his tapasya, and leaving behind Devahuti with her child, Kapila Dev, who is none other than an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the picture you see on the right. Kapila Dev came to teach some philosophy, specifically called the Sankhya Yoga system, and his mother was the main inquirer of the questions. So at this time, in this setting, after years of whatever enjoyment she tried to have with the material sense objects, she concluded by saying, "Man, I'm sick and tired." So let me just ask, can anybody raise their hand if they've ever been sick or tired of something? Yeah, I think almost everybody raised their hand. So that's good. So we can relate to it, right? First one, it's pretty on the dot. So let's look at what Devahuti specifically says. This is my summary of it, but in the scriptures, in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, we can find her words. I'll just recite the Sanskrit and then the English. Devahutir uvacha nirvinna nitaram bhuman asad indriya darshanat yena samba ramanena kapanandam tama prabhu. Devahuti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses. For because of this sense disturbance, my lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. So basically, Devahuti is just saying that she's tired of trying to enjoy with her senses, which are the eyes, the ears, the nose, tongue, the skin. And the reason is that it's quite simple. She, like many of us, are misusing our senses. We're trying to enjoy for ourselves, whereas the real use of the senses is revealed here in this verse. This is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it says, Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchite. Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all of our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So it's very clear, the real use of our senses is not for ourselves, which will get tired fast, but actually in service of the Lord. And I can prove this to you with an example why this makes sense, okay? Now here you see two interesting pictures. I'll explain what's happening. We all have hands, right? Raise your hand if you have a hand. So if you look at your hand is constitutionally part of your body. And usually it serves your body unless there's some ailment for it. This is its happiest state, I'll say, and I'll prove you why. The hand will often help you eat your food, right? Let's say today in Sunday feast, if there's gulab jamun like this, right? And the hand thinks, man, I'm always feeding the stomach and I don't get any of this nice gulab jamun. Today, I'm going to enjoy the gulab jamun. And if it thinks like that and starts going for it and not feeding the stomach, what's going to happen? Yeah, it'll get miserable. It'll literally get sticky and then it'll get just annoyed. It won't actually find satisfaction. It won't get the taste and it won't get the energy. So as soon as the hand actually gets back to its natural state of feeding the mouth, which feeds the belly, then all the energy will come and all the enjoyment will come. So we are like that hand. We think, let me just go enjoy this world. And you might try, but you'll just get tired and run out, just like the hand would with the gulab jamun. So we should actually just get back to our original state, which is serving Krishna. Just like the hand got into a sticky situation, we will also get into a sticky situation if we try to enjoy too much. And an intelligent person, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, is one who does not try to enjoy by himself. He says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyanmanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Krishna says, an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasure have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So yeah, it's pretty clear why we should use our senses for Krishna's sake, because that's our true position and that's intelligent. Now, there's also one other extreme. Some people will get so tired of sense gratification that they'll suddenly say, you know what? I'm going to renounce everything. I'm never going to use my senses ever again. I'm going to go sit in a cave and just meditate forever. Sorry, quick announcement. Everybody please move up because more people are coming in the back. Don't worry, I won't bite. Thank you. So yeah, what I was saying is some people will try to renounce all use of their senses, and this doesn't work either. I'll give you an example. Back in the early days of America, let's say 50, 60, even 100 years ago, a labor union used to be very common in the workplace, right? And what happened is if the companies were not being treated properly, they would form the union and go on strike. Sometimes you even hear about it today. But how long can employees go on strike for? Just for a limited amount of time. Eventually, they have to return to work, whether they get the benefits they wanted or whether they don't, because everybody has to work and earn a living and do their job, right? So just like that, I'll give you one more example. Let's say a thief is on the run. Now, how long? Let's say that he goes and hides in a broom closet somewhere because he's running away from the cops. How long can he stay in that closet? How long can he just hide? Eventually, he'll have to come out and keep running and keep on the chase. So, using these two examples, we can see that even though we might try to artificially retract the use of our senses, it's only a matter of time before that all melts away and you fall back into sense gratification. That's what our scriptures say. If you go and strike this, that'll also run out fast. So there's this verse in the Bhagavatam. I'll try to recite it. It says, Yenye Ravinda Daksha Vimuktamaninas Twayasta Bhavad Avishuddha Budaya Aru Yakrichena Param Padam Tata Patyante Addo Nadrita Yushmat Angrayaha. And here it says, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. So the truth is we have to use our senses in some way. We can't completely retract them forever, and we also cannot fully enjoy by always trying to satisfy ourselves. So what's being said in this verse is that the secret is just somewhere in the middle. You use your senses for the service of Krishna, and as you try to detach yourself from the world, you take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. Because if you try to do something else where it doesn't involve the shelter of Krishna's feet, it'll end up failing. That's what this verse is trying to tell us. So we should pray for detachment from the world. We should pray for limited sense gratification, but we should go to Krishna for those prayers. We can't do it on our own endeavor. And the reason is that our senses need a superior enjoyment. They won't be satisfied with the lower modes. And there's a famous verse in Bhagavad Gita, right? It says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasa varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for such sense objects remains. But seizing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So yeah, the idea is that you should elevate your taste, elevate the use of your senses, and there you'll be in your natural position, just like the hand, and you won't get into a sticky situation. So yeah, I'll conclude, this is the first attitude that we can learn from the Bhagavatam, that we should be careful how we use our senses. And if we ever feel in our lives, like all of us admitted, that we're sick and tired, we can follow the example of Devahuti. We can approach the Supreme Lord, use our senses in the right way, and lose this disgust that we have with the senses. Now, the second attitude, and that is the personality of Dhruva Maharaj, his example. Now, again, I'll ask for a volunteer from the audience to just give a small summary of who Dhruva Maharaj is. Yes, Prabhu. And what is he famous for? You can just briefly describe. Yeah, he's famous for his prayers to God, right? Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, I'll just give a small summary again. So Dhruva Maharaj, he was actually a prince. So his father was the king of his land. And one day, the other situation is that he not only has one mother, but he also has a stepmother in the palace. So the king has two wives, Suruchi and Suniti, and Dhruva Maharaj is the son of the wife less favored by the king. So one day, as you can see on the picture on the left, the king was having the other son on the lap, and Dhruva Maharaj, seeing that, oh, my father is holding, my stepbrother on his lap, I want to also go there and be with him. He tried to go and sit on his father's lap, but his stepmother, out of her, neglect or whatever emotion say, some negative mood, she said, how dare you try to sit on your father's lap? You don't have that right. If you want to sit on your father's lap, if you want to inherit from him, you should die, and in your next life, you should take birth from my womb. If you're my son, then you have that power. It was very harsh words, right, to hear from even a stepmother for a 5-year-old boy. That's how old he was at the time. And the saddest part for Dhruva Maharaj was that the king stayed quiet throughout this whole experience. He didn't defend Dhruv Maharaj. He didn't speak up to his favorable wife because he didn't want to create problems. So Dhruv Maharaj ran away, as you can see in the picture, with tears in his eyes, and he went to his mother and he told her the situation. And like one thing his stepmother said is, you should go pray to the Lord for such a benediction to be my son. You really should go pray to the Lord. So Dhruv Maharaj went to his mother and said, "Is this true that I have to take birth from her womb to sit on my own father's lap?" And his mother felt very bad, but she said, "Yes, you should pray to the Lord for whatever you desire. We can't do anything ourselves." And so Dhruv Maharaj asked how he could do this, and his mother said, great personalities, they go to the forest and they meditate to the Lord. And so Dhruv Maharaj, having this like fixed up attitude that, I'll show them, he went to the forest. So that's his attitude, that he was a Kshatriya. So Kshatriyas have a little bit of a motive passion, that they have a little bit of fire in them. So he said, how can I be challenged like that? I'll show them that I'm right and I'll figure it. They always say never underestimate anybody because you might get hurt in the process. And that's exactly what happened in this story. Dhruv Maharaj went to the forest at the age of 5, and he had full confidence that I'm going to go and I'm going to go pray to the Lord and get revenge. Like I'm going to show them. And while going with this mood, he actually came across Narad Muni. And Narad Muni was very intrigued by this 5-year-old boy. So he tested him. He said, "Dear boy, you shouldn't get so overly emotional about these things. You should remain patient and execute your duties well, and things will come. And this is so extreme. Why are you going to a forest? You're so young." He tried to, test him, see how much, what's the word? Like confidence. Yeah, determination. Thank you. How much determination he had. And so Dhruv Maharaj said, "Thank you, O saint. I appreciate what you say, but sorry, I'm still going to continue ahead." And so Narad Muni was very pleased by this. And then he actually instructed him of, what sort of austerities to take, what meditations to do in order to get the audience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But by the time Dhruv Maharaj executed all of this, and he actually achieved the darshan of the Supreme Lord, he was much more purified. And he was thinking, "Oh my God, why did I even ask for what I wanted? Why did I even want to get revenge on my family or get a kingdom like that? All that is useless," because he was so purified by his penances and yoga that he just realized that the Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal. But by the time he had realized all this, he was in audience with the Supreme Lord. So this is a perfect example that we can see now in our own lives, that even those with material desires, if they approach the Lord, they will be purified. This material desire will go away. And honestly, you can see in this story that Krishna will still give you that material desire, but also take away your desire for that material object. So there's a famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita that talks about this, right? Who approaches Krishna? It says, "Chatur vida bhajante mam janaha sukritorjuna arto jignasur artarti dhyani cha bharatarshaba." O best among the Bharatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. And let's just see what Dhruv Maharaj actually said when he went to Narad Muni and he had this initial material desire. So we can see if it relates to what we want sometimes in our life. He says in the 4th canto, "Padam tri bhuvanat krishtam jigisho sadhu vartmame bru yasmat pitir brahman anyer apya anadishtitham." O learned Brahmana, I want to occupy a position more exalted than any yet achieved within the 3 worlds by anyone, even by my father and grandfather. If you will oblige, kindly advise me of an honest path to follow by which I can achieve the goal of my life. So you can see Dhruv Maharaj, he had a very clear goal. I want to get a kingdom better than his father and his grandfather. And I believe his grandfather is Brahma, or his great-grandfather. Yeah. So he wanted a kingdom even greater than Brahma. What is Brahma's kingdom? The whole world, the whole material universe, right? So that was his grand material goal. But one thing that is talked about in this purport is that Dhruv Maharaj approached it in the right way. He went to a bona fide spiritual master who came on his path. He asked him what to do, even though he had a material goal. and he followed his guru's instructions. Not only that, he knew that even if he had a material goal, he should still go to Krishna to get that goal achieved, not any other personality. And those are two very valuable things that worked out for him. So we can think about it that way too, that we might sometimes feel guilty that, oh, I know as a devotee I should not go to Krishna. But no, it's okay. If you have a desire, just be honest with Krishna and go to him, because through this example, we can see that again, that desire will be taken away. There's another famous verse I didn't put on the slides, but I'm sure you all know it. It's in the second canto of the Bhagavatam. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So, Prabhu, do you want to say a little bit about that verse?
So akama sarva, it means that whether you have zero desires, or you're filled with all kinds of material desires, or all you desire is liberation, you must intensely worship. Tivrena bhakti yogena, intensely worship the Supreme Lord, and you get past that.
Thank you, Prabhu. So that's the summary we can take from this second attitude, right? And one more thing that's a famous quote from Dhruva Maharaj is, after he achieved all this, he had this regret. There's a famous verse that says, right, like, I was looking for broken pieces of glass when I had the diamond in front of me. So yeah, sometimes we do that, but we can learn from his example. And I'll show you one more verse about, going to the Lord for material things. It's in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, and it says, Satyam dishatyartitam atito nirnam naivartado yat punar artita yatha swayam vidate bhajata manichatam ichapidanam nijapada pallavam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead fulfills the material desires of a devotee who approaches him with such motives, but he does not bestow benedictions upon the devotee that will cause him to demand more benedictions again. However, the Lord willingly gives the devotee shelter at his own lotus feet, even though such a person does not aspire for it. And that shelter satisfies all his desires. That is the Supreme Lord's special mercy. So yeah, it's a pretty simple conclusion. Whatever reason we want to get some goal in life, even if it's material, just go to Krishna. He'll help you get that goal, and he'll get you much more too. So now we'll move on to the third example. And this is the story of Bharat Maharaj. Now, again, I'll ask a volunteer from the audience to say maybe a little bit of a summary of who is Bharat Maharaj, or why is he famous? Anybody want to say a little bit? Yes, Mandaji. Thank you, Mataji. And
It's famous for the three births that he had to take.
exactly.
He's a great king, and like she said, India is named after him, and so many wonderful things achieved. But he went to the forest. He fell in love with this deer. I mean, he was taking care of this baby deer, and he got affected, attached to it. So unfortunately, because of that attachment, in the next life he was born as a deer instead of perfecting his Krishna consciousness. And he realized what a mistake that was. So in his third life, he became a human as Jada Bharat, and at that time he pretended he wasn't very smart or anything. He just focused on Krishna consciousness, so that he was distracted. And he learned his lesson that never again says, will I get distracted again.
Exactly. Thank you, Prabhu. You summarized my whole point. But I'll say a little bit more about it to add on to what Prabhu said. Yeah, that Bharat Maharaj, as you can see on the left, he was like a hero. He was a great emperor of the world. And he left all that to come to the forest to do his service, his tapasya, to achieve the Supreme Lord. It's the most noble thing you could do. But in the process, he fell across the sight of this baby deer, this fawn, as you can see in the picture. It was so cute and adorable. And he thought, oh my God, who's going to take care of it? I should really, take care of this deer. And then he developed an attachment. And over time, when he left his body, as you can see on the right-hand side, he thought about this deer, this baby deer. And that's why he became a deer in his next life. And so what I'll show in this section is that he had the attitude that never again will I get distracted like that. Now I have a funny story to share. It's from my Guru Maharaj. So he said that it's a personal story. So when he was a 16-year-old, he left, sort of like the material atmosphere, and he became a brahmachari in the ashram. So he was saying that, I also felt like a great hero. I beat the system. I'm out of here. I'm going to Krishna. I'm doing so well. And once he got to the temple, the devotees there told him, okay, Vaisheshika, like, okay, he wasn't named that at the time, but they said, you're too skinny. You got to eat more. Okay. And so he took that instruction very seriously. And every week he would especially look for the kheer at the Sunday feast, the sweet rice. And he describes it as heavenly nectar at the time. And he said, but after 3 weeks of that, I think on the third weekend, he had taken so much kheer in that Sunday feast that after he went back to his ashram in that night, he put his head against the wall and he thought tomorrow's headlines in the local newspaper is probably going to be kid renounces world and then dies of overeating. So yeah, even he was saying in that story, he experienced a point of saying, man, never again am I going to eat that much kheer, right? So when you have this sort of mood, like my Maharaj did, of course, Bharat Maharaj, and you channel it in devotional service, it's very helpful because you have such strength and, again, determination that you can take forward. And because Bharat Maharaj thought about this deer in his life, he became a deer, right? I just proved why that works, that whole system, and why we should be careful what we think about at the time of death, right? There's a famous verse Krishna says, Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tajatante kilevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So that's why Bharat Maharaj became a deer. It wasn't just for the story's sake, it's a true philosophical point. And when he became a deer, it was a little bit unique of a circumstance. Usually deer, they're animals, they don't have a human sort of brain, right? But Bharat Maharaj, because of his severe, devotional service in his previous life, he had this gift of, while being a deer, he could remember what had happened in his previous life. And so he realized, oh man, I really bungled it. And I got attracted to this deer and I lost it all. So in the Bhagavatam, we have the recitation, we have the account of what he says, what he thinks at this time, while he's in the body of a deer. So I'll just read it out for everybody. He says, although in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. Considering his past and present life, he constantly repented his activities, speaking in the following way. In the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj began to lament, what misfortune! I have fallen from the path of the self-realized. I gave up my real sons, wife, and home to advance in spiritual life, and I took shelter in a solitary holy place in the forest. I became self-controlled and self-realized, and I engaged constantly in devotional service, hearing, thinking, chanting, worshipping, and remembering the Supreme Personality Godhead, Vasudeva. I was successful in my attempt, so much so that my mind was always absorbed in devotional service. However, due to my personal foolishness, my mind again became attached, this time to a deer. Now I have obtained the body of a deer and have fallen far from my devotional practices. So this is pretty powerful, right? Like to see what Bharat Maharaj was going through. And there's another example in the Bhagavatam about this sort of never again feeling. I forgot which canto, but the Bhagavatam describes how each of us, when we're in the womb of our mother, we have certain prayers to the Lord because we're experiencing severe discomfort in that cramped space with all those liquids and all those nasty like chemicals, right? And the soul in that womb prays to the Lord that, my Lord, actually right now I'm thinking about you, I'm conscious of you, and I want to devote my life to you. I want to serve you. But I also know that once I'm pushed out of this womb, the material world will take over, the senses will start acting, and I'll forget all about this mood, and I'll start to enjoy myself. So in this way, the soul actually prays, my Lord, maybe let me just stay in here because at least I'll remember you. And so think about it. Every time we take a birth and now we're in this human form of life, our soul, like we thought about this sort of prayer when we were in the womb, but still, again, we come into this material world life after life. So in a way, we can see that we also experience a never again feeling, but still we end up doing it again and again, right? So it's very relatable for us that not just Bharat Maharaj, oh, became a deer. Who knows if I'll become a deer? No, like we experience this all the time, life after life. And then we can learn, like Prabhu said, what Bharat Maharaj did after this body as a deer. He got his third life as Jada Bharat. And in this life, he took to Krishna consciousness very seriously. He did not care for like social customs, for his status, for his wealth, for what people thought. He just strictly followed his devotional practice, and he thought never again. Right? So we should also learn from this one more example. Oh, sorry, one more lesson that Bharat Maharaj could have taught, like, oh man, I'm such a great devotee. I left everything for Krishna. I'm doing such nice service. Like, look at me. And we might also think when we get little achievements or progress that I'm such a great devotee, dude. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But never feel this entitlement, right? Because once you feel entitlement, you lose this devotional practice. And my Maharaj says there's a term in Queen Kunti's prayers where she talks about a lot of moods she wants to develop. And one word she uses is called akinchana. And this word literally means like nothing. And like what we're trying to say with this word is that we should have a mood that we're like nothing. We're not this big personality with everything in the world. We're just the servant of the Lord. And if we have this humble mood of nothingness, like I'm not qualified for anything, everything I have is the mercy of the Lord and the devotees, and we actually develop this, then we have much more capability to advance devotional service. We should honestly feel like, I'm so lucky I'm a devotee. I don't even deserve to be here. As my Maharaj says, somebody let me through the back door and said, shh, don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. So that should be our mood, that extreme gratitude for being a devotee and extreme humility. And how do you maintain this? Sometimes you might think like, oh, I'll do all this, but still I get into so much trouble in my life. Like, I get so many pains, miseries, obstacles. If I'm being such a good devotee, why is Krishna giving me this pain, right? And so there's a famous verse in the Bhagavatam, Tatenu kampam sumikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvagapur vidadan namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadayabak. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering respectful obeisances within his heart, words, and body. He is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So, the answer that's being given here is that a lot of the miseries that we get in our life is actually just our own doing. Like we might try to blame the Lord, but as we know, the process of karma, whatever you do gets, come back to you. So we shouldn't be blaming the Lord as devotees who understands this knowledge that it's not the Lord's fault we're suffering, it's our own fault. But yeah, we should still go to the Lord and pray to him that please let me continue in my devotional service and come to you. And again, like one thing I heard from Maharaj is like, it's like we're cooking ourselves in a pot on the stove. And then we're crying and saying, who's doing this to me? Who's doing this to me? Who's doing this to me? But we're not just taking our hand and offing the fire. We're not getting out of the stove. We keep on cooking ourselves and expecting something to change or somebody else to get in trouble. But it's our own fault. So we should just understand and have the wisdom to get out of this pot, turn off the fire, and take to devotional life. So we stop cooking ourselves in this world. So yeah, I covered a lot of points with Bharat Maharaj, but you can see there's a very valuable lesson here that even though one makes a mistake, you can come back if you have the right seriousness. And you should never feel entitled, no matter how great you are, because you can fall down too. If he did, why can't we? And you should, even if you do make a mistake, try your very best to have the attitude, never again, and then actually advance from that point. So that was 3 out of the 5. Sorry, I know there's a lot of verses and a lot of personalities, but can somebody take a moment to describe the 3 people we talked about today so far? Devahuti and Jada Bharat Maharaj. Thank you so much.
If they get tired, I'll show them and never again.
Thank you, Prabhu. There you go. So that's a summary of where we got so far. And now the last 2 I'll take care of. The 4th example is actually our famous Prahlad Maharaj, right? Now, most of us know Prahlad Maharaj because of, the story of Lord Nrsimhadev, Hiranyakashipu, and all this. But I'm going to cover some points about him that maybe you might not know. Or you will know, but I'll just fine-tune those less talked about points. The first is this. If you see the picture on the left, this is related to Prahlad Maharaj because when he was in the womb of his mother, he was actually instructed by Devarshi Narad Muni. And I believe he recited the whole Bhagavatam to him, right? So Prahlad Maharaj from the womb was taking instruction from his spiritual master, Narad Muni. And yeah, fast forward all those years until 5 years into his life where he survives the atrocities of his demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu, and then he gets the darshan of Nrsimhadev who protects him. At that point, as you can even see in this picture, what's described in the Bhagavatam is that Lord Nrsimhadev was very angry and like ferocious after killing Hiranyakashipu. And it's a little bit interesting because all the demigods offer prayers to the Lord and they try to appease him, calm him down. But even Brahma says by then, like, okay, Prahlad Maharaj, it's all up to you now. Like, we couldn't do it. Like, you got to take care of it. And Prahlad Maharaj offers such beautiful prayers. And in the course of these prayers, Nrsimhadev gets appeased and he calms down. And at that point, he sort of asks Prahlad Maharaj, what benediction can I give you? What do you want? You've done so well and you've been so devoted to me faithfully, even at the points where you almost died. And here, again, most of us would be like, I want this, that. Prahlad Maharaj says, actually, this is what he says. Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi kupe kama vibhakam anuya prapatam prasangat kritva masat surashina bhagavan grihita soham katam nuvishije tavabritya sevam. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant Narad Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How can I leave his service? So this comes to our mood with Prahlad Maharaj, which is, I'm doing this to please my guru. So in this moment, Prahlad Maharaj, instead of saying, I want this and that and get me here and there, like even Dhruv Maharaj had initially asked, he said, no, I just want to serve my guru. How could I ever leave him? He's done so much for me. So we can learn that too, that sometimes in our devotional life, we will be faced with opportunities where we might have to take a risk or surrender or do something out of our comfort zone. And usually the instinct is to be scared and say, no, I can't do that. Like, it's beyond me. But here we can learn from Prahlad Maharaj's mood that, you know what? Even if not for yourself, why don't you do it for your guru, to please your guru? Even if you think, oh, I can't do this in my devotional life, just take a chance and do it for him because that's what Prahlad Maharaj did, right? And Nrsimhadev was even more pleased by that than if he had asked for any material benedictions. So this is the perfect way to advance in devotional service, following Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, and doing things in devotional life you may be scared to do, but do it for your Guru. And just for the sake of time, I'll go for the last mood, which is from the personality of Gajendra. Right? And we all know Gajendra's story, that he was a king in his former life, and he was cursed to become an elephant in his next. Now, in this elephant life, one day he went to take a bath in the river with his she elephants, but due to his bad misfortune, a crocodile came and snatched his leg and was eating away at it. And I think they had a battle for so many years where Gajendra was trying to get away, the crocodile kept pulling. And eventually, again, because his former life was full of devotional service, he remembered that he could pray to the Supreme Lord and ask for help. So the mood here is, I need help. You know, sometimes people say the Hare Krishna mantra, it's a call for help, right? In that same way, Gajendra was calling for help. He had the famous prayers that he gave. And being so pleased by these prayers for help, Lord Vishnu literally came on Garuda, as you can see in the picture, and saved Gajendra. So the first thing I want to say that we could notice here is you see from a few examples that if you have a very strong devotional life now, even if you somehow bungle it and mess up, in your next life, you have a chance of remembering all this accrued devotion. So that's another impetus to do really well in this life. Now, the other thing we can learn is, sometimes, again, even if not for material thing, we'll need help. Like Gajendra needed to save his life here. So you could think, oh, why did he want to save his life? We're not the body, Prabhu, like blah, blah, blah. But again, it's okay to go for the Lord for such things under certain conditions, such as that you want to save your life for serving the Lord. You want to save your family for serving with them. You want to sometimes you can use these material things for a spiritual use. So that's why we can ask for help from the Lord. And then this is the prayer in the Bhagavatam from Gajendra that we can read to conclude about his mood. And it says, unalloyed devotees who have no desire other than to serve the Lord, worship him in full surrender, and always hear and chant about his activities, which are most wonderful and auspicious. Thus they always merge in an ocean of transcendental bliss. Such devotees never ask the Lord for any benediction. I, however, am in danger. Thus, I pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is eternally existing, who is invisible, who is the Lord of all great personalities, such as Brahma, and who is available only by transcendental bhakti yoga. Being extremely subtle, he is beyond the reach of my senses and is transcendental to all external realization. He is unlimited, he is the original cause, and he is completely full in everything. I offer my obeisances unto him. So yeah, in the purport, the different acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they do say that one's body can be saved because it's an instrument that we can use to serve Krishna. And it's not bad to ask Krishna to help us in such situations like this. Because we're not asking for ourselves, but we're asking for the Lord. So we will always remember that Krishna is in our hearts at all times, but still it works extra effective if we go and actually ask him, please help me. And then I'll conclude here because first time is out and second I've concluded. What we can learn from today's class is that there's 5 personalities. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Naji Gopal ji ki jai, Shri Ram Sita Lakshmana Hanuman ki jai. I'll just conclude. So today we heard about 5 personalities which had 5 different moods, right? Devahuti, Dhruv Maharaj, Bharat Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, and then Gajendra. And the moods were, I'm sick and tired, I'll show them, never again, I'll do this to please my guru, and I need help. So please remember that if you resonated with any of these moods, that means you can relate to these personalities. We should go read their stories, we should follow in their footsteps, and we can achieve success in Krishna consciousness by doing so. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Just some time for questions.
Okay, if there's any questions I can take. Yes, Prabhu.
In the beginning, you showed that definition of the attitude. So if you, how you feel towards something determines how you behave. But it also, the other way works around, just like that story of in the early days of Prabhupada, when Bhagavad Muni said, I don't feel like paying obeisances, and Prabhupada said, pay obeisances, and you feel like that. So to what extent should we try to understand that even if I don't feel like doing something, I should do it because I'll develop that attitude? For example, I know it's the lesser status to ask for something. So let me not ask for something, even though I feel like asking for something, and maybe I'll develop that attitude. So how do we balance that?
That's a really good question, Prabhu. I'll say from what I know. First is that, yeah, if we have the knowledge of what's right, we should go for the higher goal. But if we truly cannot, like, elevate ourselves to stop asking for material things, the point of this example is that it's okay to go to the Lord, because sometimes people will think, okay, I'm not supposed to ask Krishna for this, so I'll go to such and such personality, whether demigods or other, like, like mystical people or whatever. So we don't want that to happen. We say just go to Krishna and have the knowledge that you should be elevating over time, but don't be too hard on yourself. And I also agree, that's a great point where you said that sometimes you may not feel like it, but you should just do it. Like sometimes we don't feel like chanting, but we got to chant, right? So we should be strict to follow the rules and regulations that are prescribed to us, but we should know that the feeling will come over time. And then for things that are not so mandatory, then we should just feel wherever we are, we at our level just work for where we're at and then elevate ourselves slowly. Thank you. Any other questions or points? Yes, Prabhu.
So I think most people here, from Indian origin, are all feeling very happy with the Ram Mandir open. But apart from the Ram Mandir, the Krishna Mandir, and thousands of other mandirs were destroyed 1,000 years ago. I have a feeling that maybe we are doing something wrong again, and in 1,000 years,
everything will get destroyed again. You know, if not by Muslim, by Christian, or by a new religion. You know, whatever. So, do you think there's something wrong, or you think everything is going according to Krishna's plan?
I don't think I know the answer to that question. I'm not Krishna, but I think that in our capacity, like they have the circle of control and circle of influence. We can't really control what's going to happen in 1,000 years or which organization will come and battle us, but we can control how we act today. One thing I've heard from my teacher is that even towards other religions, for example, we should always leave a good impression, whether you're distributing books or talking to them. We don't want to be somebody's enemy. We want to be a humble person and cultivate those attitudes. And whether we're going in the right way or not, time will tell. But if we follow the Parampara's instructions, like our Srila Prabhupada's instructions, then we have faith that something right will occur, at least for us and all those around us. And that's the only solution we really have.
Can I address that?
Yes,
This
sir.
is a delicate problem. We as followers of Srila Prabhupada to understand Prabhupada's mission. So in 1953, before Prabhupada came to America, he formed what? League of Devotees. In the League of Devotees, he wrote a list of purposes. One of the purposes he wrote is this. He says, to re-excavate and reclaim the holy places of transcendental passion, personality of Godhead, as well as the places where his devotees flourished, including various temples of worship. That includes Ayodhya, where his devotees flourished. This is, if we are follow the Prabhupada, we should not have any less confidence that this reclaiming, re-establishing of Lord Ram's worship is at all debatable. It's an unnecessary controversy. So we should be proud and do it.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'll just add one final point to that. One more example in our own sampradaya is Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. They were sent by Mahaprabhu to go and excavate the lost places in Vrindavan.
Yes.
And that's why we have our famous temples today. So we have Parampara to show us. Yeah. Okay, thank you everybody again. And please go enjoy prasadam. Thank you.